feeding of animals using dry matter. There's a notion that we were told a lot of farmers in Uganda believe in feeding their cattle or their animals with green matter. And I think it's because it's in plenty. Back in Kenya, I think because we have most parts of the country as arid or semi-arid or arid, I think our animals got used to dry matter, which actually is is what is recommended anyway. Yeah, dry matter is the most recommended. So we also would want to really start with Uganda because of that animal feed from the straws, and then what we can do with the byproduct of that process. So it is in the pipeline, Moses, and we'll identify a few farmers in Kwen and a few in Kenya to pilot those initiatives very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. That's really, really informative. And I know from time to time, Anthony and my friend Mwangi, you have also a policy issue in Mwea, whereby Mwangi tells Anthony that some of our straws go to Kajiado, and then Anthony argues that that's mineral mining from the soil. Then it comes back as manure to Mwea, carrying a lot of weeds. Then Anthony says that that one has to be taken to the ministry to be discussed. So there is a lot more to be on that.
Thank you very much. I want to start from what Anton has just said. I think those days when we had a lot of green vegetation here, and of course farmers would depend on natural vegetation for grazing animals. But as we speak of now, if you moved around, some farmers even don't have where to graze the animals. The reason I'm applauding what Climotrust is doing, because I see it as a hope, a ray of hope for our farmers. Apparently farmers feed animals even on dry maize straws. You don't destroy anything. You collect it and you're able to feed your animals, sometimes even just from the backyard, because you don't have any grazing space out there. So please expedite the process. And I want to secondly make mention to what, I didn't get his name, sorry, I've been a little bit out. I'm trying to coordinate a few things here and there. But he was talking about a herbicide for striga. How I wish it could even come tomorrow. Yes. In fact, if you were to do anything on this earth, work on striga and you can die the next day, you'll leave a very big legacy. It will, yes, because this has been a problem that we almost want to believe that it has no answer. My DPO is there. I've asked him, why this problem? You are the district production and marketing officer. Why are farmers suffering with striga? We want to thank you for the work you are doing, and we are looking forward to seeing that herbicide come for us. My only, I don't know if it had been mentioned, you'll excuse me. I was out a bit. Well, I wanted to comment on ownership of these trial sites by our farmers. Had it been talked about? They've talked about it here during the discussion. He raised it as a challenge during the presentation. I want to make mention that many times we have problems with the farmers owning these sites because of the packaging of information as you're entering the farmers' fields. Sometimes you give farmers a lot of expectations, and you communicate clearly the do's and don'ts, what the farmers are supposed to do. But basically, for our information, most of our farmers have been brainwashed by the NGO world. They've been brainwashed to the extent that they think that when an NGO comes or an outsider comes, they remain at the recipient end and they don't want to do anything. So I want to encourage us, when we get out there, please first try to work on those expectations. Otherwise, if you assume that they are just welcoming the trials in their homes, You may find the next day they have even grazed on that site. We are lucky that that has not happened. But basically that is the problem. Once they understand, they should be able to own it because the benefit is theirs. Even the seeds, I'm sure, won't be taken away from them. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for that statement. It's really, really encouraging, and it's true. What you are saying is really, really true on the ground there. For those people who actually may not actually understand how to give the approach, but with climate, we assure you, we are doing at our level best to make sure that we don't actually raise the hopes beyond the trees into the skies, but we maintain with the farmers for perfect operations. Now, thank you very much, team. At this point, we want to shift the gears very fast because of time. I'm going to request our able young man, Dr. Arthur Wasukira, to come and make presentations, after which we shall follow with the same trend of contribution and question asking. Daktari, tembea bwana kwa aste, ile style yako ya pole pole, unyeshe umbwembwe style yako bwana.
Yeah, thank you, OO. And OO is a popular name in this side of the country. Yeah, just once again, I'm Arthur Wasukira, and as they load the presentation, I'd like to ask if the rest of my team is present. That's Patrick, the Jovia make Patrick, Jovia, there's Mudoba, El Dinani. Yes, they are not here. It's you representing them. Yes, thank you for that. Of course, Rembo, Diana, Santo, and the one who is already standing. Those are members who have been supporting us in the field, although what you see there is the technical aspect of those who do the thinking and delivery later on. So I thank you for the support, and this far we've gone. So I want to discuss with you rice cultivation under rattoning and intermittent watering systems in this country. I work for the National Agricultural Research Organization, as indicated there. This is going to be difficult. Can't I have the keyboard here? Anyway, yeah. So in our country, the visitors, you're welcome, but this part of ESC, this is how our rice is produced in 3 agroecologies. And that also forms the basis of our discussion today, which leads towards sustainable rice production within the region. We have the rain-fed lowlands in that first column, the irrigated lowlands, popular of which is one which has been discussed earlier, the Atari Basin and parts of Olweny, where water, actually their production depends on how much water comes from the mountain where we are. And if Kenya allows some of it to cross over from the hills, then it floods in those valleys and they have something. So it's very interesting. You go there on a dry day, you're working very well in the field, and in minutes you have to remove the gumboots and go bare, is it bare knuckle or bare ankle into the fields. Then of course we have the upland, which we've picked up quite widely in the country. Next. So, why then are we talking about rice in this country? We think there are several challenges summarized in that seesaw, I would say. And as you can see, it's overwhelming the productivity. Climate change, we are going through that now. It doesn't need an explanation. Policy variations, our speaker just mentioned a few things earlier. Biotic and abiotic constraints, which we are widely addressing as a nation. Of course, the poor agronomic practices, which we've had several interventions from you, our partners, KT, and others, but somehow we still do not apply what we advise. them to do or advise us, because we are also farmers. And that has resulted into limited yields in this country, as you can see, on an average of about 2.5 tons, despite the kind of varieties we've released with over 6 tons per hectare. But that's where we are. Compared to our neighbors, the East, particularly Kenya, is at 4.9, which means, and yet I think the number of the varieties they are already producing there came either from Tanzania or from us. It's just a thought. That goes without saying that the land itself is not expanding, yet our population is growing. Are we at about 48 now? You know, we are running fast, but the land is not expanding, and people have changed their feeding routines, I would say. Their preferences have gone towards rice, as also the energy sources which used to cook the ugali have reduced. So that explains really where we are headed. We need to save this crop. Next, please. So I talked about the poor agronomic practices, and this is the reality of what is down there for you, our visitors. Yes, I had a discussion last week, and some of the sentiments I was sharing, I think Michael there kept on wondering how we even produce the 2.5 tons, but this is how it is. So in the first pictures, it really shows you our levels of land preparation. I think those bands must have been made probably when the scheme itself was coming up, and you can see how poorly managed they are. The area itself is not leveled, so even if you had mechanization like JICA is trying to do down in Atari, you find that it's difficult to access the fields further down, because what was planned is not how we implemented. On the lower end, it shows you, interestingly, 2 fields. In one block, you clearly see that it was recently transplanted. I don't have a pointer, I'll show you, but where it says paddy state. And in the next plot itself, the other one is almost due, so there's a lot of challenges therein. And on the other side, we see random transplanting, which again, as the previous presentation, he advised about line planting. We are going against that, and of course, the low mechanization. Next, please. So this was just to really give you a highlight of the kind of varieties this country has at its disposal, and yet we still have low productivity as affected by the others. And I won't dwell much on this, but I would like to highlight particularly some of these are within the trials, so I wanted to share this, so when I go ahead talking about it, then we understand why. Ukafasi is a new line released this year. It's highly aromatic, therefore you're guaranteed some good money, and it grows in a very short time. Within 100 days, you will have had a yield, and I think the farmers are really going to make some good money from that. We have narrow rice 1. It's a perennial rice, so you see how it quickly fits into the ratoon system we are trying to introduce. And that one has also a very good yield capacity, and it's relatively aromatic. Again, it guarantees you good market. And of course, the ever-reliant Wheater 9. For all these years, it's still serving and somehow persistent because of its tolerance to several of the diseases. So some of these fall within our evaluations ongoing. Next, please. So, we said they are changing climatic conditions, but also within boardrooms, the climate within there is changing. Without really discussing what is in these pictures, I would like to just paint a simple picture or sketch of what's going on. In the far, that will be your left. On the far left picture top, I think it's a set of citizens clearing their fields, right? That happens to be rice. In the next picture is a farmer who I think is able, because I see he has security with him in his fields, and they must be discussing the next sales, right? I said I thought. That's my thinking. in the lower row, I'd like to again start on your far left. I think they are trying to make sure water gets, there is drainage within their small town. So it must be a discussion about water. But in essence, they were rejecting what were being advised to get out of the production area. In the next picture, we've taken on actually to survive now in those chambers. You now have to go back and hopefully discuss not to evict the persons. But thanks to our government, in doing all of this, there are always mitigation measures. And instead of you producing rice, we are saying you receive those little animals, raise them, and with goats. My other question will be, where will they feed from? Anyway, let's go next. So with that, I would like to discuss a very effective option which seeks to really support the government and address some of these challenges. If we develop these technologies, they are meant to help support our communities so they can survive. And one of them is rice ratooning in Uganda. Is a new approach. Next, please. Just for introductory purposes and to explain to especially some of our farmers and those who are not directly in the science world, ratoon comes from retosas, which means to cut down, and retono, which means to thunder back. I wonder why Latin is not internationally accepted. It's scientifically accepted. Then, in brief, it's cut down at harvest and then allow the crop to grow back, simply like we do with any grass. And that's something we are adapting to rice. And this has been done in China over many decades and years. But of recent, because of climatic challenges, most of the Asian countries, including our Madagascar is not Asian, it's African, including Madagascar now, have picked it up and it's doing so well. The pictures on the right show you a scenario within this country. I think Amos should be able to recognize this. The top picture is a field Kafasi 39, U Kafasi 39, and this was in Doho. They were doing seed multiplication. Soon after the harvest, they had used the combine harvester, but the next time we went back to do our other business on rice, actually found the fields were already regrowing. But that wasn't in the farmer's plan for it to regrow. He actually said, oh, the tractors he was meant to use for clearing had delayed, but imagine what was already going on or what he would have benefited. Next.